Hello everyone, I'm Mariam. We're in China, in Beijing, at Beijing Normal University, which is Beijing Shifan Daicue. And today I'm gonna introduce you my university and exchange semester being here. The purpose of this video is to introduce you some useful ideas or concepts of specific cultural behaviors in China which can be useful for you when you come here to study. And the concept particularly which I took into consideration for this video is the Confucian traditions and social harmony in China. You're wondering what is that? We're gonna go to the professors and to the students to ask about it more. Thank you very much for meeting my invitation for the interview. Could you please introduce yourself first of all for our students?
Okay, I'm a Chinese teacher. I teach in the School of Culture of Beijing Normal University. My major is Chinese culture and language.
My name is Jasmine. I come from Egypt and I'm studying Chinese literature. I'm doing my PhD in Chinese literature.
My name is Wang Xinsong. I'm a professor at the School of Social Development and Public Policy at Beijing Normal University. Well, Confucianism is a very large term, and it deserves a very lengthy introduction. But to make it short, Confucianism is first of all an objective of governance in traditional China.
Some people think that it's a kind of religion, but in my own opinion, I think it's a kind of philosophy.
Because Confucianism has been going through ups and downs. Obviously in the more recent past of Chinese history, at times Confucianism was branded as the old, the tradition that was supposed to be broken down, and rather we needed some new ideologies and some new value system and so forth. So at times, at the turn of the century, for example, 20th century, and during the Cultural Revolution, Confucianism was kind of receding from the mainstream Chinese value system. But the fact is that it has always been there, because it has been there for so long that people here in China behave and think in ways that are deeply embedded in Confucianism. So even today, when modernization has gone so far in China, where you have competing value systems, or Western system, Marxism, and so forth, Confucianism is always there. And
in China, some people think Confucianism is a religion, and some people think it's a norm, and some people think it's a philosophy. I think the Confucianism is a philosophy because it's very common in the Chinese and affect Chinese daily life. And in the middle school, the teacher and let the pupils read the book "Luan Yu" is the Confucius word or sentence, and include his core idea.
it is an objective where social harmony is demanded, and in a given society, it is divided into various types of social relationships, and for every type of social relationship, individuals were required to behave and perform in certain manner and ways. So let's take the example of husband and wife, or father and son. in those pair of relationships, everybody was required to behave in certain ways, and wives were supposed to stay at home and do housework, and husbands were expected to make money and do the labor work like farming, so on and so forth. So the example shows us that in every pair of relationships, everybody was given some expectations. And the idea is that if every person in a given society behaves accordingly, then there is going to be a harmony in the society. There will not be conflicts. And of course, that's an ideal type. That's an objective of governance. But Confucianism can also be a tool of governance. In other words, rulers in ancient China, took Confucianism as an instrument of reaching the goal of ruling. And obviously, if everybody in the society follows certain rituals and codes of conduct, and then it will become easier for the emperors to rule the country. So that's why for thousands of years Confucianism was promoted and followed as a political ideology by almost every dynasties, because that has become a tradition of how China was supposed to be ruled.
What is the idea of social harmony in the context of Confucianism? Could you explain this, please?
Okay, the first I want to talk about the core idea of the social harmony is democracy, the rule of law, and the fairness and the justice, and the friendship and vitality, stability, and the relationship between the nature and the human. The relationship between the human and the nature is also harmony. So I think the harmony is come from the Confucianism, because the Confucianism, the core idea is Ren. The Ren is a lot of people. So it's a relationship between the people, included the family members relationship, and you and the strangers relationship, even in the company, the people's relationship. That means you should be love people. You respect people, respect the elder, and you love the younger, like you respect your parents and your kids.
In daily life, when it comes to relationships within families, for example, the idea of seniority is very important. It's taken as very important value. Over here, people respect older people, the elders, simply because their seniority, their age. That's part of the Confucian value system. And also we still take social harmony and harmony in general as a very core value over here. And so you can tell that the government is still valuing very high the idea of harmony, and by putting it into the most important party directives and documents. And in fact, achieving social harmony has been a major goal of the Communist Party in terms of ruling the society.
I don't recall a specific situation, but I think that Chinese people, they don't easily complain. They don't easily say that they suffer. They don't easily say that they have a problem with something. They just try to adapt. They try to find a way to live. They try to find a way to just exist. So this is something that I realized living in China for like 4 years now.
In at workplaces, because when I was studying overseas, I observed that people, for example, in the departments, they were all equal to each other in terms of their status in daily lives. People call each other their first names, no matter what level of seniority they were. But over here, you can't do that. You kind of respect the older colleagues by calling them 老师, which is professor or teacher, even though they're your colleagues with them. And so that kind of legacy of Confucianism is obviously apparent over here.
I see. So, but do I understand you correct that in terms of formality, it is more valued or more important in China to keep the formalities or the rules which are expected from you in a special role that you are holding in the society?
Yeah, that's right. And in fact, some people argue that the respect and the values over rituals and formalities are so important that sometimes you cannot really figure out what a individual really thinks or deep in their heart, because there can be a divergence between formality and the reality, and that's why sometimes people say Westerners are straightforward and Chinese people are more conservative in the sense that they don't speak out simply what they think. You do have a lot of rituals and concerns that can be part of the legacy of Confucianism.
If you are at work and you have something that you don't like in your workmate or some problem with them, so you just try to find a way to adapt. You try to find a way to live peacefully with them. You just don't try to make a problem with them, or don't try to make this problem go to your boss.
Last thing, for the foreign students or foreign people coming to China, would you have kind of like advice or main point that they have to keep in their mind before coming or preparing to come to China, and not to be facing the cultural shock or the expectations towards the rules and traditions and the way of behavior here in China?
Well, not so much. I think for international students to experience China, that the cultural shock is exactly what they should expect. That's part of the experience of studying and learning in China. Plus, the reality is that a lot of, if you're in Beijing, Shanghai, all these big cities, especially in universities, faculty members and students are quite, they're not as traditional as people you would meet in rural places, for example. So I wouldn't think that there will be too much of a cultural shock if international students are simply living in Beijing or Shanghai. And I think locals are actually interested in learning about the culture and values of the international students. So